name above all name, above all name. Ruler, Redeemer, risen, conqueror, Jesus, yeah, Jesus, name above all names. Your name is Jesus, risen from the dead. You are the glory, lifter of our head. You have the only name by which we can be saved. I call you Jesus, oh, I call you Jesus, name above all names, name above all names. Let's say who he is again. Healer, healer, mender, master, savior, lover, giver, name above all name, above all name. Oh, risen, yeah. Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. He's a name above all. Your name is Jesus, yeah. You are the glory, lifter of our head. You have the only name by which we can be saved. I call you Jesus. I call you Jesus. Nobody greater than you. Nobody stronger than you. No name is higher than the name of Jesus. Nobody bigger than you. No one can do what you do. No name is higher than the name of, higher than the name of Jesus. Your name is Jesus. You've risen from the dead. You are the glory, the lifter of our head. You have the only name by which we can be saved. I call you Jesus. Jesus. I call you Jesus. I call you Jesus. Yeah, nobody greater than you. Nobody stronger than you. No name is higher than the name of Jesus. Nobody bigger than you. No one can do what you do. No name is higher than the name of, higher than the name. Nobody greater than you. Nobody stronger than you. No name is higher than the name of Jesus. Nobody bigger than you. No one can do what you do. No name is higher than the name of, higher than the name of Jesus. I call you Jesus. Son of the living God, I call you Jesus. Lord, I call you Jesus.
We Anthem Wednesday.
In Isaiah chapter 6, the Bible declares that.
Well, this is where I bring the curtains down on another edition of cruise control on this We Anthem Wednesday. I trust that you enjoyed the music and the ministry. What I didn't get in today, I'll try and get in next week, alright? I see Carol is sending me some suggestions. Gonna try and get that in for you next week. But it's about that time for me to say my goodbyes, and as always want to send love to my parents, Cuthbert Joseph the Bishop, and his beautiful wife, my mom Celine, my beautiful hardworking wife Avanel. We are putting things in place as we prepare to take our daughter to the hospital in Miami. Last few days has been very, very hectic. Some disappointments in the mix, as we try to get everything in order. But we know God is faithful, amen. So keep us in your prayer, and reminding you once again that the homegoing service for Dr. Margaret Elcock, the funeral will be on Saturday, July 24th at 11:45 a.m. at J.E. Guide Funeral Home. And in lieu of flowers, the family suggests that donations be made to the Isaac Fund. The homegoing service would be live on Isaac the Promise, Isaac Facebook page, FBN TV, YouTube channel, and J.E. Guide's Funeral Home and Crematorium Limited on Facebook and YouTube. The service link would be shared closer to the date. Stay tuned to Isaac 90.1 FM, The Promise, for more details. Much love going out to our beautiful daughter Heerah, and our handsome son Amani Christoph. Could not do it without you guys. As always, want to let you know, don't package your dream to fit within your budget. Citizens Community Forum with host Stephen Cummings is up next.
You're worthy of my worship. Yeah. Worthy is our God. Anybody know God is faithful? Even when we're not faithful, He's still faithful. Yes, He is. Keeps looking out for me. Keeps making a way for me. Because He's faithful. And you are the Lord. The King. I worship you because you're my everything, so I give myself to you. You're the Lord of Lords. You're in control. You're my everything. I couldn't make it without you. Oh, somebody lift your voice and say, you are the Lord of Lords. God, you're in control. You're the King. God, you're my everything. You're all that I need. Everything that I have, God, I give it to you. And God, you're the King. Come on, somebody say, you're my everything. So I give myself to you. Master, you died for me. You are the Lord. You are the King. God, you're my everything. If nobody else will, I will worship you, Father. And you're my King. So you're my everything. You got everything under control. That's why I say right now, God, that my worship, hey, it belongs to you. I'm not ashamed because my praise belongs to you. To nobody but you. My worship, right now, I give it to you. This praise, my hallelujah belongs to you.
Isaac 98.1 FM. Listen to us at home, in your cars, on your way to work, or in the office. Tune in now and listen live.
Be part of the Citizens Community Forum.
When we talk about witness protection in Trinidad and Tobago, do you have any concerns that we may still not have the proper kind of witness protection program?
Our witness protection program is not the best protection program. We have had complainants wanting protection to give information about a police officer because they fear for their life.
But Mr. Cummings, I think you hit the nail on the head a little while ago, because with the COVID and with the pandemic, it has caused a lot of institutions to treat with the way you deal with business in a more efficient way.
Let's discuss the issues. Let's dialogue towards developing a deeper understanding, fostering an atmosphere of peace, all towards creating better, stronger families and communities. Right here on Isaac 98.1 FM, every Wednesday, 8 to 9 p.m. The Citizens Community Forum. Your host, Stephen Cummings. Good evening, I'm Stephen Cummings and welcome again to the Citizens Community Forum. Our objective is always to have an engaging, interactive and civil discourse, and in so doing help develop a culture of peace and understanding through constructive dialogue and, yes, citizens' participation. Our topics are wide-ranging, covering community, social and national issues. Our guests are persons who express views and opinions of their own and in context, views which are not necessarily that of the FBN network, the Citizens Community Forum or that of the host. While there might be a divergence of views and perspectives and a discussion that may sometimes be emotionally charged, I believe there is still room for understanding and finding common ground. On Saturday, 17th July, we saw, after a 16-month closure, the opening of the country's borders. We heard of what has been described as new complexities now associated with air travel. One official also remarked that it was not business as usual given a pandemic that still exists, and that traveling at this time remains a choice for those who are prepared for associated complexities. Simply put, the process to access the airport and board a flight has changed. Now, we are also hearing of a TT travel pass, which must now be presented to border control authorities, and proof of a negative PCR test taken no earlier than 72 hours prior to arrival in Trinidad and Tobago. Added to this, we are also reminded that we are in a 9-to-5 state of emergency. Minister in the Office of the Prime Minister, Stuart Young, told us of stiff penalties for border breaches. Again, going forward, it is clear that along with the new rules of engagement, it is not going to be easy for simple travel. With all that now appears to be the new normal, it is not reasonable, or I should say, is it not reasonable to conclude that we could be a safer population, better shielded from both internal and external threats? That's one key question we hope to explore among others this evening. This evening, inside the Citizens Community Forum, our topic, border security, creating a framework for a safer Trinidad and Tobago. And as we talk about security, there is a strong argument as well over the constitutionality of mandatory vaccination and an expressed right to self-determination. And in what certainly is a delicate balance, considering the issue, again, one has to carefully balance the rights of personal interests and aspirations as against the wider public interests. And with a raging global virus, there's a strong argument as well that one should not be a clear and present danger to public safety, while maintenance of one's personal rights is also a strong and compelling argument. Well, joining me this evening is Commander Garvin Heerah, strategic security consultant and organizational transformational expert, one who has extensive experience in aviation security plans and matters, having worked as director at Trinidad and Tobago's National Operations Center, the NOC, and someone who also had responsibilities to treat with combating maritime anti-terrorism activities, human trafficking, and drug trade and arms smuggling in the region. Let's welcome Commander Garvin Heerah to the Citizens Community Forum as we discuss this business of border security inside the Citizens Community Forum. Commander Heerah, good evening and welcome.
Stephen, hi. It is indeed a pleasure, and good evening to all of our viewing and streaming public to be part of the Citizens Community Forum. I look forward to the conversation this evening, and very interesting topic, to be quite truthful. So you guys are doing a good job, so I'm looking forward to the conversation.
All right. Thank you so much, Commander. And it is the second time. I believe we had a very interesting discussion the last time that you were on, and we're happy to have you back. All right, Commander, where do we start as a country? What should be among the fundamentals of, citizens' security, especially, in a time of increased threats internally and externally, with reference to a virus that appears to be among the most challenging for countries and security experts like yourselves?
Well, we have to understand that we can't shift left or right. We have to face it head on, that we are indeed dealing with a pandemic. We are indeed dealing with a global crisis. And in all fairness, we have had some hiccups. We have had some stumbling blocks some getting there. But if one is just to basically analyze or evaluate as to where we were, as to now where we are and where we're going, some credit has to be given to the Ministry of Health and its officials and those that are putting together that coordination to ensure that, Trinidad and Tobago is prioritizing some of the issues. We will not get it perfect. We won't have the ideal plan, but it's a lessons learned, and we are moving in the direction of incline on our curve. Having said that, we are still within a state of emergency. We are basic in some restrictions as per timings. And on top of that, we have to deal with the internal and external security issues and threats. So I know you mentioned a couple of things coming into the preamble about the opening of the borders, managing the crisis, dealing with the security issues, the border control. But one thing that has to be in place, and that is that national effort to ensure our safety and security is prioritized by the authorities and the decision makers in country and by the citizens, because we cannot adopt a posture as the citizens to know, well, you know what, we have to see what the authorities are doing, we have to see what the government is doing, and find fault in things where we know we could help as a country. We have to see this as a national effort, a combined joint effort between citizens and decision makers, meaning agents of the state, together for a national effort. And this is really the remedy for us to climb out of this pit that we might have put ourselves in, of not being able to deal with some of the challenges. But I must say, I've been involved in a couple projects nationally, dealing with the vaccines, dealing with mobilizations in the Ministry of Health, combined with some other state agencies, especially the corporate sector. And we are seeing mass improvement in a number of areas that is showing that we are getting there. It's a slow trek, but we are getting there.
All right, so we're getting there, as you say. Commander, what are some of the modern stopgaps and instruments that you believe we can or should be, using now or deploying to stem the inflow of undesirables, apart from just the pandemic that we've been treating with, from the health, from the Ministry of Health, but together with that, there is the view that we also have to keep our eyes on some of the other undesirables, and we can mention smuggling, trafficking, illegal, migration, organized crime and terrorism, because, we have, as I said, while the focus is on treating with the COVID-19 pandemic and the virus, we can't lose sight of some of those other undesirables.
No, you're correct. Okay, so there's a primary focus, and that primary focus is dealing with the pandemic, managing the crisis nationally. As I would have said in another place a couple of weeks back, I think it was last week, when we had those mass homicides. Remember when it flared up on us?
Yes.
And I honestly said, you know what, law enforcement is already so strangled in trying to maintain law and order, working in a state of emergency condition, and to have to now treat with the issues of a gang warfare and homicides and shooting in broad daylight and a brazen disregard for law enforcement and for citizens and security. So it is challenging, but therein now lies the other problem of, wait a minute, we still have the possibility, the strong potential of illegal immigrants coming into our country through some of the porous borders entering. And while we are focusing on trying to contain this virus in the country, there's a strong possibility that people who are entering our borders illegally is also adding or contributing to a greater threat, correct?
Yes.
So one of the things that we must understand in conversation, Stephen and team, those of us viewing and the support aspects, we are dealing not so much with human smuggling, people being brought over, coming in illegally and whatever, We have to focus here now. What are we dealing with? We are dealing, we would have had a preliminary conversation some time back, we are dealing with transnational organized crime.
Yes.
And when you're dealing with transnational organized crime, the big word to understand here is organized and transnational.
Right. Those are
if we're going to put that in
keywords.
Sorry?
Two keywords there.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, well, crime, that comes out without asking. But if you were to put this in the corporate governance statement, what we're dealing with here is international business development. That's the translation in corporate governance, international business development. And then we have crime in the background, in brackets, right? Transnational organized crime is international business development for criminal purposes.
Okay.
Internationally, we have people linked up. Business development is that how can we make money from a criminal activity? That is what is transnational organized crime. Business development for criminal activity involving international players. And that is what this whole issue is about. This is what people may think, okay, it's Venezuelans coming over and whatever. No, guys. This is an organized thing. It's a business where people in country in Trinidad and Tobago and people in Venezuela and in other areas, other jurisdictions, they have linkages. They have ways and means of moving money, getting false documents, facilitating through officials, government officials of the state, be it law enforcement, be it immigration, be it customs, I don't know. But it's an organized system. And therefore, we have to understand that there will always be a rigidity in our fight as we look to contain and control and deal with the issues of the pandemic and the global crisis in country. We have transnational organized crime that has made human smuggling a business, where people will pay money to be smuggled out of their country into our country. And there's as I always say, there is a distinction, a clear distinction between human trafficking and human smuggling. We are dealing with more human smuggling, where people want to leave a jurisdiction or country, so will pay money to an organized system, will be brought over, dropped here in Trinidad, collected by some other official, sometimes official vehicles, you know it, and they're transported to different areas, safe houses. They get false documents, they get ID cards, they full works, they're linked up with a job, and all this has a cost.
Yes.
And people are involved in this, and big money is being passed. But what is the threat?
Yeah.
The threat in this is that they can also be coming across with the virus. They can also be coming across with variants, and we are then facing that scenario. Is there an economic issue here where we could benefit? Of course, because it's a labor. And can this labor be tapped into, maybe for the blue economy or whatever? But these people are unregistered. These people are illegal. These
Undocumented,
people are entered unofficially. And as a government and as decision makers and as state agencies, we have to treat with the illegalities of this.
Okay.
Bordering underneath that is the humanitarian issues. People fleeing for their lives to come to our country, hopefully for a new life. So that is the challenge that, law enforcement, national security has to face.
And you're listening to and viewing the Citizens Community Forum. I'm Stephen Cummings, talking with Commander Heerah, Garvin Heerah, and the topic this evening, border security, creating a framework for a safer Trinidad and Tobago. Commander, you talked about organized crime, and I think it stands to reason, when we talk about a system that is organized in that way, there's no way that what we may see as or call or refer to as the ordinary man in the street being able to have such a successful, if I may use that in quote, enterprise. It has to be something that that has to be coordinated, and not just locally, but regionally, and also sometimes, many times, internationally. So that we are talking about a network now of organized activity. And I'm sure that during your time you would have had to face these kinds of issues and coming up with plans and strategies to stem. How successful you think as a country, Trinidad and Tobago, we have been in treating with this very same business of organized crime, illegal activity. How has successful our history has been? It has
continued to be a work in progress in the fight against transnational organized crime, because the fluidity of this is that it changes. There's a flexibility to this. So there's no rigid focus on how you're going to target it, because the thing is so organized that it flexes away.
Yeah,
It changes
moving
the
target.
dialogue.
That's a moving target. Okay.
Exactly. It's a living organism.
Okay, you put it.
It's a
Yeah, you put it
moving
much
target,
better.
Correct.
Yes.
One thing I want to correct you on, Stephen.
Yeah.
We have led along in a thinking that this involves a higher echelon of shirt and tie wearing, air-conditioned office conference room sitting.
No, that's the view on the
Planners.
ground. Huh? That's the view
Yeah.
on the ground, Commander.
Planners who are dealing with this organized crime.
Yes.
There are involvements of certain levels, and we have seen it in international systems, even locally here, because you're dealing with international drug trade, for instance, big money being moved back and forth, businesses being mirrored and presented as legitimized systems, import, export, marketing, you name it. Yes, that exists. We're not saying no, but don't dismiss the ability, the thinking, the coordination, and the brain power of the ordinary guys on the street. These fellas have been able to network and maintain a certain amount of respect in the aspect on that zone of transnational organized crime. Many people think these guys can't do that. These fellas live on the block, living in the plannings or whatever, can't design or have a group or an organization and be speaking to internationally or to move. No, guys. These fellas are very, very equipped with criminal thinking. And there's a cross-fertilization between the criminal thinking and business development. So a lot of them have their own businesses, A lot of these guys have legitimate business fronts where they engage in contracts and doing stuff and paying staff. And they are very, very organized as compared to what people may think that they're just run-of-the-mill on-the-block gangsters.
Okay.
That is not so. So therefore, when I mentioned fluidity, when I mentioned its flexibility and living organism, it now empowers national security law enforcement to always be able to understand the target, understand the intelligence gathering, and your tradecraft has to shift in order to treat with the new threat and the enemy and the new type of criminality. A threat that we may be facing, and I don't have the empirical evidence, is an expectation that we don't know who's coming across.
Right.
For instance, let's say the Venezuela mainland. There may be legitimate people of trade, hairdressers, teachers, in one instance, medical people, mechanics, construction people, big time, a big one, a lot of different trades. Who is to say that some of the trades that are coming over aren't criminal activity, dealing with cybercrime, people who are known, who understand weapons, who may be assassins, who may understand the drug trade. That's a type of trade too,
Yes.
In the transnational organized crime diaspora, there's a type of trade. So we have different types of trade coming over legally and illegally. And if I am of a construction trade and I come into Trinidad, be it legal or illegal, you'll find sooner or later somebody in the construction industry would know who I am or my people or my family, and I would be found out and be asked or given a little project, be it a wall to build or a house to paint or at a cost, because they knew that this is construction people that came over. The same way, criminals that are in country will be located, will be detected, disputed, they'll be found out by that diaspora of criminal thinking, and who knows, maybe contracted to conduct certain types of criminal activity in country. That is why now national security has to be rolling with the times and understand the new threat. Because the same way we have different trades coming over, we also have a criminal trade coming over, who will be linking up and integrating with the criminal existence here in country. That added on to the pandemic, global crisis, gives a bigger burden for us as a country and as a state and as national security and all of the other agencies to fight.
All right, and you're listening to and viewing the Citizens Community Forum. Stephen Cummings. Commander, you mentioned threat and risk assessment, and I think when you and I had a discussion a little earlier on, for on this very same business of risk assessment, and Is it that seeing that we have entered into a new era, you are a little more comforted that we have added checks and balances now at ports of entry? We are talking about the TT travel pass. There's the move towards the digitization of information and data. Are you more comforted at this time, seeing that we are able to have a maybe a stronger handle on our risk assessment in Trinidad and Tobago?
Risk assessment is a significant pivot in how we conduct our business, be it from a corporate system, what is the risk assessment of our investments, our alliances, our transformation, or if it's in the national security system, what is the risk assessment regarding certain new dynamics on the horizon? What are the new threats facing us as law enforcement? That is why you always hear me advocate for that multi-agency or that inter-agency collaborative framework where all of the agencies are thinking, moving, standardized in one direction, utilizing the threat and the risk that is national. 6 months ago, the risk and the threat as compared to now might have been slightly different, because now we're talking open borders. Now we're talking an aviation system. Now we're talking, when we say open borders, a lot of people thinking, oh guys, the airport is open. Hold on, I'm willing to hear now. Open borders, how does it address also our maritime sector?
Yes.
Are we talking boats coming in and tour boats and luxury boats and people who own vessels coming in now a little more freely? That's open borders too.
Yes.
So we have expanded our risk and our threat, not only in the aspect of the pandemic, but in the aspect of those who may be thinking criminally, with a crime intent, as to how now we're going to treat with some of these add-ons. A risk assessment is done regarding the environment and the time and what is facing you. We conduct a risk, an RTVA, risk, threat, and vulnerability assessment.
Okay.
I'm hopeful, fingers crossed, that prior to opening the airport and indicating the airport is ready now to conduct business in a pandemic, that experts would have been called in and conducted an RTVA led by Civil Aviation and Airports Authority, because AVSEC, aviation security, is not airport security.
Okay, so
that's a different thing.
It's a different
Airport
arm.
security plays into aviation security, AVSEC, which involves also your airspace, air traffic control, international players, the full works. But, Stephen, borders are not airports.
Okay.
Borders is maritime. Borders is aviation. Borders is airspace. Also, and involving your critical infrastructure around your country. All of these things play into border control. So yes, I'm quite happy to see the introduction of certain processes and procedures and the digitization that has been talked about, but there has to be a national strategy that is being directed with key, clearly defined objectives, specific timelines, and key people, subject matter experts, driving on this. So when I say strategy, I'm encapsulating strategic plan.
Okay.
So there should be a national strategic plan that is dealing with the digitization on the influence of facing the threat of the pandemic, one, but involving the additions, the add-ons of open borders, which is maritime, a big one, and aviation. And it must be a whole of government approach.
Yeah.
It's called systems integration. Are our systems integrated to treat with a national effort now that we have shifted the threat and we have expanded it to include the opening of our borders?
All right, and you're listening to the Citizens Community Forum. I have with me Commander Garvin Heerah, and we are talking border security, creating a framework for safer Trinidad and Tobago. Commander, what we'll do at the moment, we will take just a short break and come right back just to continue. We will continue that discussion there on the issue of border security, and we will have you just share with us some more on that issue. So we'll be back shortly.
Thank you.
Wednesday, join our 1-hour current affairs program, the Citizens Community Forum. Topics are wide-ranging and echoes opinions and voices of our society, whether it be leadership, governance, health, crime, politics, or social issues. We can all have a civil and constructive discussion inside the Citizens Community Forum every Wednesday from 8 to 9 p.m. on Isaac 98.1 FM with Stephen Cummings.
Last week when I heard that there were 16 children sleeping in the cell in a police station, that was something that was unacceptable to me.
The current constitution of the Public Services Association, there have been concerns about how
but
the
if
constitution...
if you are restructuring the PSC, the only way you can restructure the PSC itself is through constitutional reform.
If the minister does not accept our request and revalidate his license, we'll have to be heading to court.
Every Wednesday, 8 to 9 p.m., the Citizens Community Forum. Your host, Stephen Cummings.
Prime Minister, good evening to you and welcome to the Citizens Community Forum.
Good evening, my brother, and all your viewers, listeners. I'm happy to be here with you.
You know, our complaints have been more solid, and it's been more substance coming forward now. Mr. Cummings, I think Trinidad can be proud of their civilian oversight work.
Mr. Cummings, you were asking about our operational, you were asking about it from an operational standpoint. And I think where we stand out and where we stand apart from other investigative bodies is that we rely mostly on science.
But first of all, good evening, Stephen. Thank you very much for having me on your program, and a very good evening to all of your listeners. It's good to be with you once again.
Welcome back to the Citizens Community Forum. I'm Stephen Cummings, and our topic this evening, border security, creating a framework for a safer Trinidad and Tobago. And I have with me this evening inside the Citizens Community Forum, Commander Garvin Heerah. Commander, welcome back.
Thank you.
When we talk about operational tools, Commander, and I'm thinking of deployment of ground, air, and seacraft intelligence, biometrics, sensors, data processing, interoperability, open systems, wireless networking, surveillance, reconnaissance, and I have a list here. Continuous threat assessment, we just spoke about during the first half hour. Situational awareness and real-time reporting are only some of the enabling systems and technologies for securing the nation's borders and critical infrastructure. Do you believe we are strong in most of those areas? And if not all of those areas, and if failing, where could be some of our stress points as we talk about all these systems and having a robust approach towards again, and we go back to securing the country's borders and creating a safer framework for us here in Trinidad and Tobago?
You see, former national security head of various other units, some key units that have dealt with what you're talking about, we have recognized that the environment shifted or changed incrementally. And therefore, we as a country and as decision makers and as law enforcement, as a national security, had to change incrementally to deal with it. And I think we were a bit slow off the ball with that one. But you just listed a long list of operational tools as you had articulated.
Yes.
But they are really contributors towards a mega border control plan. Bravo Charlie Papa, a BCP.
Yes.
But what is important for us to understand that integral to a border control plan is a border control strategy. And once you have identified the strategy, the build up to the strategy would identify gaps, would identify weak points, not so much porous borders. We have a weak point in Ikaka, so we have a weak point in Mayaro, we have a weak point no, not that. I'm not talking that. I'm saying weak points in the strategy. Where have we been failing? Is it an upgrade of our systems? Is it an issue with what I'll call the integrity of our human officials, the humans, those who are part of the system? Is it that their integrity is being challenged? Do we have issues there? Is it funding? Is it a lack of an integrated system working with border control? Is it maritime craft assets? Do we have a shortage here? Is it air surveillance? Where are the gaps? So integral to designing, which is a big word. People think when you hear design, my last Friday's column in the Guardian spoke about that you're only talking about entrepreneurship or entrepreneurial mindset, where these are the people thinking about design only in marketing. No, guys, in governance, in the public sector and in the private sector, design is an important word. It's significant to your strategy.
Right.
So are we designing new approaches to treat with this threat of border control?
Right, and I've heard of the term. And I've heard of the term, Commander. The security architecture must be able to be robust, to be able to treat with current threats, and not just something that would have been, constructed or designed 10 or 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, well, there's something called the integrity of the architecture, right? if you are into construction, you drill, test the wall. What is the integrity of this architecture,
yes,
this building? When we look at some of the really old buildings in Trinidad and Tobago, they might be old, but they're not ruins.
But Commander, part of the problem, that we have been having, not just in Trinidad and Tobago, but throughout the Caribbean, and I suppose, extended throughout the world, is that when you have the changing of administrations, you may have certain kinds of plans for border security, and we just talked about the, investigating the integrity of those systems. Sometimes you have, or not sometimes, but many times you have a changing of the guards, and you have a changing of policy as well. And we at times, we go back to kind of reinventing the wheel, and we get nowhere very fast. That has also been a problem with the administrations historically. How do we stem that?
Well, there are some questions that you cannot leave out in the examination paper and hope that you still pass the test. You just
this is one of those. I suppose
60 years in history of a practice that we were like, why are we doing this? When you look at the international players, when you look at the first world players, we would like to express our identity as first world capabilities. I mean, honestly, within CARICOM and the region, we're really considered a very developed country compared to some of our CARICOM nations.
Yes.
But there seems to be a practice across CARICOM and this side of defense. You see it in some of the other big countries. I don't think that we are isolated with this thing, guys. But we have a tendency that if one administration was pushing on a certain type of policy or strategy, and a new administration comes in, worse yet, it's not even to say politically, administratively, administrations. Sometimes in a specific administration, one minister is pushing on a certain type of policy and strategy, and that minister is changed or moves to another ministry, and the next minister comes in. What he was doing before stops right in the water.
Yes, and that's what I was referring to.
We don't seem to adhere professionally to our business continuity as a country. Business continuity development. We don't see business continuity plans here. We don't see us continuing from a national effort, because there were a number of various very, very good systems involved in national security from previous administrations back 2, 3, 4 changed administration, because a political party may remain in power, but it changes. Even if it wins the election, because new ministers come in, a new sensitization towards our strategies and policy. It might be the same political party, but there's definitely a new administration, because it's a new political public before us.
Indeed.
So you find that and it shuts down draw nines, as we used to say, put it in the draw nine, or refuse to continue and begin to build their own thing. We're very good at that in the country. That has caused us to be quite truthful, quite responsible to where we are today, rather than a developed country pushing and
unfortunately. Yes.
Yeah, we have suffered the consequences of that.
Unfortunately. And you're listening to and viewing the Citizens Community Forum. I'm Stephen Cummings. With me this evening is Commander Garvin Heerah, and we are talking border security, creating a safer and a better security framework for Trinidad and Tobago. Commander, we have learned just some time ago of the tragic death and of the Haitian president, Jovenel Moise. And not only, here in our region in terms of turmoil and breaches of security and what have you, we've also seen in the US, and you would remember that we had a situation there where we had the storming of the White House. When these things happen, I'm sure you would agree that there would have been, in many instances, probably a lack of strategic thinking and foresight and be able to, have a security system that is designed to prevent these kinds of things from happening. And I know that, we probably in the Caribbean here can be faulted of probably not having that kind of foresight. Is it that, I'm not just talking about Trinidad and Tobago, but in the region, is it something that's missing, that you think that we have not been able to sit down and really have that kind of watertight, if I may use that expression, system that would avoid, now no system, as you would agree, no system is perfect, but at least minimize some of these things from happening by using our intelligence, by getting regional and international involvement, stakeholder involvement, to avoid such tragic incidents from happening?
So you're quite correct. No system is perfect, but when incidents like what we saw happened in Haiti occurs in your neighborhood, you have to pay specific attention. These are signs and symptoms where the what if questions are easily answered. And I will always advocate for what if questions. What if, boy? What if?
Yes,
what if?
There's a what if question. Yes.
You have to challenge what ifs in the theater of your operation. Be it a simple operation of a normal police activity or joint defense force police activity. Somebody on that table has to be pushing what if. The what if questions has to come out. And one of the issues that is surfacing out of the what if and what took place in Haiti is sometimes you find systems, administrations, leaders lose contact with the ground. And they trust systems and technology as the information gathering tool or apparatus to bring forward information or intelligence. When sometimes it's the ground that really has the information.
And I think you referenced that in the earlier on in the program.
Exactly. Yes. Technology may cover a certain atmosphere, a certain level within the system. But if you lose contact with the ground, you may be led to believe certain things.
A false sense of security.
Technology
yes.
is saying.
Yes.
A false sense of security.
Yes.
When the ground is saying something different. So my flag that I would raise for all of our systems in this country, in the neighborhood, in CARICOM, pay attention to what took place in Haiti and evaluate whether they lost contact with the ground. You would hear about a lot of gang warfare, gangs controlling, no control by the state, this is happening, that is happening. Lost control. The state had no control. The state has to have connection to the ground. Anytime the ground and the state has been separated, you're opening a big portal for any sort of criminal activity to take place.
Okay.
And therefore you have to be very, very stringent. You have to have strong walls. You have to be the gatekeeper of your integrity based on how you are treating with the ground. Because what happens is that as your the existence of your popularity, the existence of your leadership, the existence of your fame and fortune, you get carried away with the public awareness, and the public relations, and the image, and the mileage, and the position, and the office.
Yes.
And you lose contact
with the ground.
And my strong advice is renew your linkage with the ground, because the ground is saying things, and you're hearing a lot of stuff in country, across the region. And when you lose contact with the ground, you have a false sense of security that make you think you can go to bed and nothing will happen to you.
Okay.
And you can, and I saw it happen to His Excellency.
All right, unfortunately. And Commander, we are almost to the end of the program, but before I let you go, we back here in Trinidad and Tobago, we have just recently acquired 2 Cape-class Coast Guard vessels, funded to the tune of 36.6 billion each from Perth, Australia. And it is expected that after the boats are handed over, Austal officials will lead intense training in preparation for the boats to be put into service, joining the rest of the fleet patrolling the country's maritime borders. Do you expect these boats to have any serious and positive dent in coastal surveillance? Now, I heard of the radar system that some persons said had its own operational problems. The question is if there is truth to that, to our not being able to, let's say, maintain, our systems, manage and operate what we already have. There is a view that adding additional layers of security apparatus could prove to be even more problematic for us, Commander.
Well, I must say that additional assets is always a welcoming factor for national security for any unit. We're talking Coast Guard specific.
Yes.
Getting those vessels involves, apart from the training and the development of our crews, our Coast Guard men and women, it also professionalizes our aspect of how we're going to treat with the threats that we have out there. Now, remember, we don't only have the threat of breaching borders and illegal immigrants and human smuggling or illegal arms and narcotics. We have the existing responsibility of search and rescue, for instance, which is a big maritime responsibility for Trinidad and Tobago. We are the Mike, Romeo, Charlie, we are the Maritime Response Coordinating Center for a very large region in the area. These vessels will be able to support our search and rescue responsibility within that zone. Those vessels will also be able to support us nationally as an asset to service other countries and neighbors of CARICOM in the event of a disaster, natural disaster, that is disaster management, being able to be deployed as first responders to treat with any country facing that, as you would have seen what took place with St. Vincent recently.
Yes.
So there's some added responsibilities. Would they add to what we have to do as a unit, as a Coast Guard, and as a country? Yes, they will be. My simple advice is, guys, we understand operations, but it comes back to plan and to leadership.
Yes.
Therefore, what is strongly recommended is that we just don't jump in and fuel up and crew up and train up and whatever and start just patrolling up and down the waters.
There has to be a strategy, right? Yes.
Yeah, that's not going to get us anywhere. Yeah. All we're going to have out there is high visibility. Effectiveness, the efficacy of that is what is going to be questioned. So therefore, we need to sit, and we should have been doing that prior to acquiring the asset.
Yes.
And designing a workable maritime domain awareness plan. With a maritime domain awareness plan, you grid your coverage and you understand how to deploy your assets, who go out, where, who's on standby, whatever, and you involve the integration of your radars, your technology, and of course, your fast patrols outside of these vessels, and push strong on your intelligence so that you can work or patrol smart. So I am assuming that there are a lot of good guys in the Coast Guard who understand this, and we should not just jump into the fanfare of, okay, we got a new car, let's go drive it. We have a new boat, let's go patrol up and down. Let's do this by working together with a proper maritime domain awareness plan, covering our zone, covering what is required, and most importantly, a part of this responsibility, ensuring the protection of our critical infrastructure, our oil and gas sector, that is also out there in our maritime domain.
All right, Commander, I would allow you to just, just give us some closing remarks in addition to what you've just said there in about 60 seconds before we close the program. We, of course, we were talking in the last hour on border security, creating a framework for a safer Trinidad and Tobago. What would you want to have as a takeaway from what we have discussed and what you have said this evening for citizens of Trinidad and Tobago and of course the wider world who are viewing us and listening to us right now?
Yeah, I would strongly recommend that we begin understanding as a country that we have a role as the citizens of this country to be able to move in a national way, synergize together for a greater Trinidad and Tobago. We may have issues with crime, we may have issues with the economy, we may have issues with the social services, some of us may have issues with politics or whatever. Sometimes we need to put these things aside and think as one nation, as one citizen for the greater good of the country. I would strongly recommend that we see a more national effort of citizens and the state coming together rather than having time on social media to say a lot of negative things, or we see nitpicking and tit for tat and stuff in our nation's parliament. We need to see a combined effort. We are in a crisis, and when in a crisis, it has nothing to do with political party. It has nothing to do with your views or your actions or how you feel. In a crisis, it is about country. It is about us as citizens, and therefore help us each person help each other to climb out of this crisis by adopting a national approach rather than an individual or group approach. That's how I see it happening.
All right. Commander, thank you so much again for being with us inside the Citizens Community Forum.
It's been a pleasure. Look forward to it. You guys have a great thing, and I do appreciate what you're doing. Full compliments to the team. Good discussion.
Thank you again.
Good evening.
And Commander Garvin Heerah there, Strategic Security Consultant and Organizational Transformational Expert on the topic there this evening, border security, creating a framework for a safer Trinidad and Tobago. I'm Stephen Cummings, and of course it was a pleasure again being with you. Join us next Wednesday when we have another program. It was a famous poet who once said, "They came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for the communists, and I did not speak out because I was not a communist. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak for me." Words there from famous poet Martin Niemöller, 1892 to 1984.
Every Wednesday, join our 1-hour current affairs program, the Citizens Community Forum. Topics are wide-ranging and echoes opinions and voices of our society. Whether it be leadership, governance, health, crime, politics, or social issues, we can all have a civil and constructive discussion inside the Citizens Community Forum every Wednesday from 8 to 9 p.m. on Isaac 98.1 FM with Stephen Cummings.
Last week when I heard that there were 16 children sleeping in the cell in a police station, that was something that was unacceptable to me.
The current constitution of the Public Services Association, there have been concerns about how the constitution...
If you are restructuring the PSA, the only way you can restructure the PSA itself is through constitutional reform.
If the minister does not accede to our request and revalidate his license, we'll have to be headed to court.
Every Wednesday, 8 to 9 p.m., the Citizens Community Forum. Your host, Stephen Cummings.
Prime Minister, good evening to you and welcome to the Citizens Community Forum.
Evening, my brother, and all your viewers, listeners. I'm happy to be here with you.
Our complaints have been more solid, and it's been more substance coming forward now. Mr. Cummings, I think Trinidad can be proud of their civilian oversight.
Mr. Cummings, you were asking about our operational, you were asking about it from an operational standpoint. And I think where we stand out and where we stand apart from other investigative bodies is that we rely mostly on science.
But first of all, good evening, Stephen. Thank you very much for having me on your program, and a very good evening to all of your listeners. It's good to be with you once again.
Concerns that we may still not have the proper kind of witness protection program.
Our witness protection program is not the best protection program. We have had complainants wanting protection to give information about a police officer because they fear for their life.
But Mr. Cummings, I think you hit the nail on the head a little while ago, because with the COVID and with the pandemic, it has caused a lot of institutions to treat with the way you deal with business in a more efficient way.
Let's discuss the issues. Let's dialogue towards developing a deeper understanding, fostering an atmosphere of peace.